The red star was dying. Captain Velmora knew this, had known it for weeks. That was why the Kalathi research vessel Serenity's Echo was here. Floating in the dark space around the ancient sun, they were here to watch it die, to record its final years, to learn from its slow fade into darkness. Velmora stood in the center of the bridge, their crystalline body catching the dim light from the screens around them. They had lived for 300 years, and in all that time, they had never felt fear like this. The solar flare had come without warning. One moment the star was quiet, pulsing with its weak red light. The next moment it exploded outward in a burst of radiation and energy that slammed into their ship like a hammer. The shields failed first. Velmora watched the numbers drop on the screens, helpless to stop it. Then the engines made a sound that no engine should ever make, a grinding, dying sound. The lights flickered. The air grew cold. "Life support is failing," Navigator Thess said from their station. Their voice was tight with fear, their crystalline form flickering with distress. "We have maybe 72 hours before the radiation kills us." Velmora looked around the bridge at their crew. 12 Kalathi, all scientists, all people who had spent their long lives studying the quiet mysteries of stars. None of them had ever expected to die in space so far from home. "Send the distress signal," Velmora said quietly. "All frequencies. Emergency protocols. Tell them we need immediate rescue." Thess worked quickly, their crystalline fingers dancing over the controls. Within moments, the signal was broadcasting outward in all directions, crying for help across the empty dark. The Galactic Council had emergency frequencies for exactly this reason. Every ship, every station, every outpost monitored them. Someone would hear. Someone would come. They had to come. Velmora pulled up the star charts on the main screen. The outer reach sector was not heavily traveled. They were far from the major trade routes, far from the military patrol zones, far from anywhere that mattered to most species in the galaxy. The nearest council station was 6 days away at maximum speed. They had 3 days, maybe less. "Has anyone responded?" Velmora asked after an hour had passed. "The signal has been received by multiple ships," Thess reported, their voice holding a thread of hope. "The Zinthari merchant fleet, the Morvex Dominion warship Talon's Edge, and several others. They have all acknowledged receiving our distress, but are they coming?" Thess was silent for a long moment. "No confirmed responses yet, Captain." The hours crawled past. Velmora watched the radiation levels inside the ship slowly rising. Their shielding was gone. The hull itself was all that protected them now, and it was not enough. Already, Velmora could feel the faint burning sensation that meant their crystalline structure was being damaged. They would all feel it soon. First the burning, then the cracks, then the slow, painful shattering of their forms. "Captain," one of the engineers called out, "I've been running calculations. Even if someone leaves right now, the closest ship would need to be less than 3 days away to reach us in time." "Show me the map," Velmora said. The engineer displayed it on the main screen, a sphere of space centered on their position. Inside the sphere, marked in green, was the zone of survival. Any ship inside that sphere could reach them in time. Outside it, in red, was death. There were no ships in the green zone. The sphere shrank as the hours passed, growing smaller and smaller as their time ran out. Ships that might have saved them 12 hours ago were now too far away. The window of survival was closing. "Why is no one coming?" Thess asked, and their voice broke. "We are members of the Galactic Council. We have traded with these species for centuries. Why will they not help us?" Velmora had no answer. They pulled up the public response records, the official acknowledgments from the ships that had received their distress signal. The Zinthari merchant fleet had filed the distress with the proper authorities, but had not diverted from their trade route. The message was formal and correct. Distress acknowledged. Notifying Council rescue services, unable to respond directly due to cargo schedule and route hazard. The Morvex warship had been even more brief. Distress logged. No military necessity for response. Civilian matter. Other messages were similar. Acknowledged but not answered. Logged but not acted upon. Everyone had a reason. The route was too dangerous. The cargo was too valuable. The military resources were needed elsewhere. The risk was too great. All the reasons were logical. All of them made sense. And all of them meant that the Kalathi would die alone in the dark. Velmora began recording messages for their family. The others did the same. They spoke calmly into the recorders, their crystalline voices steady even as their bodies began to show the first hairline cracks from the radiation. 48 hours had passed. They had 1 day left, perhaps a bit more if they were lucky. Tess sat at their station, no longer checking for responses. The young navigator had stopped flickering with fear. Now they simply sat in stillness, the Kalathi way of accepting death. "I thought we mattered," Tess said softly. "I thought being part of the council meant something. I thought civilization meant we helped each other." "We are too far away," Velmora said. "The risk is too high. The value is too low. It is logical that they do not come." "Is that what we are? A calculation? A risk assessment?" Velmora had no answer. Then the scanner beeped. Just once, a small sound in the dying ship. Tess looked up, their crystalline forms suddenly sharp with attention. "Captain, I'm picking up a new signal." "A ship has changed course. They are heading toward us." "What ship? How far?" Tess worked the controls, their hands shaking. The IFF transponder reads, "Tus Defiant, Terran Union Scout Frigate." They looked up at Velmora in confusion. "Humans, Captain. It's a human ship." Velmora felt something they had not felt in their 300 years of life. Complete incomprehension. "Humans, where are they?" 3 days away at their current speed, Captain. They are in the red zone. Even if they leave now, even if they come at maximum speed through radiation that will damage their ship." Tess trailed off. "They cannot reach us in time," Velmora finished. "And they will expose themselves to the same danger that is killing us. Their shields will fail. Their crew will be harmed." They looked at the scanner, at the small dot moving toward them across the vast dark. "Why would they come?" The communication system crackled. A human voice, speaking in heavily accented but understandable Galactic Standard, came through the speakers. "Serenity's Echo, this is Captain Maria Santos of the Defiant. We received your distress signal. We're coming. Hold on." Velmora stared at the speaker. Around the bridge, the Kalathi crew had all turned to listen. "Hold on," the human voice repeated. "We're coming." In the darkness, far from home, surrounded by the cold mathematics of death, the Kalathi heard those words and could not understand them, but they held on. The Zinthari merchant fleet moved through space like a school of fish, hundreds of cargo ships traveling together for protection. In the command ship, Fleet Master Zixthar reviewed the distress signal from the Kalathi vessel for the 3rd time. The numbers were clear. To reach the Serenity's Echo, the fleet would need to divert from their current route. They would pass through the radiation zone around the dying star. The shields would be damaged. The cargo in the holds worth millions of credits would be exposed to harmful energy. Ships would need repairs. The delivery schedule would be broken. Contracts would be voided, and for what? To rescue 12 Kalathi scientists that the proper authorities would eventually save anyway. Zixthar clicked their mandibles in thought. The Zinthari were traitors, not rescuers. Every decision was a calculation of profit and loss. This rescue was all loss and no profit. "File the distress with the Council," Zixthar ordered. "Send a formal acknowledgement to the Kalathi ship. Note that we have alerted the proper rescue services. Then continue on our route. As you command, Fleet Master." The Zinthari fleet continued on, their hulls filled with valuable cargo, their course unchanged. On the Morvex warship Talon's Edge, Commander Draxnor studied the distress signal with cold reptilian eyes. The Morvex Dominion was built on strength and military power. Every resource had a strategic purpose. "Analysis," Draxnor commanded. "The Kalathi vessel is a science ship," his tactical officer reported. "No military value. Crew of 12, all civilians. Location is in disputed space of no strategic importance to the Dominion. Rescue would require exposing our warship to radiation damage for minimal gain." "Do the Kalathi have anything we need? Technology? Information? Resources?" "Negative, Commander. They are researching stellar phenomena. Nothing of military application." Draxnor made his decision quickly. "Log the distress as received. Notify the Galactic Council. This is a civilian matter, not a military concern. We will not respond." "Yes, Commander." The Talon's Edge continued its patrol. Weapons ready, shields strong, searching for threats that mattered. Across the galaxy, other ships received the signal. All of them made their calculations. All of them found reasons not to help. The Pelthian diplomatic cruiser was carrying important ambassadors to a treaty signing. They could not be delayed. The Quarren mining vessels were too slow. They would never reach the Kalathi in time, so why try? The Vexi research ship was studying a rare cosmic event that would not happen again for 1,000 years. Science could not be interrupted for a rescue that others would handle. All of them logged the distress. All of them notified the proper authorities. All of them continued with their important business. At the Galactic Council Station Harmony Point, the distress coordinator received the notification and entered it into the system. The closest Council rescue ship was 5 days away. They dispatched it immediately, following all proper protocols. Everyone had done their duty. Everyone had followed the rules. The system was working exactly as designed, and the Kalathi were going to die. On the Serenity's Echo, Captain Velmora pulled up information about humans. They needed to understand why this species, this young and strange species, was coming when no one else would. The database had extensive files. Humans had only been part of the Galactic Council for 200 years, practically children by the standards of most species. They came from a world called Earth, a planet that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times before finally reaching the stars. Humans were emotional, impulsive, violent. They made decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They had wars among themselves even now. They were unpredictable and often irrational, but there were other things in the database. Strange things. Velmora read about human emergency responders who ran into burning buildings to save strangers, about human lifeguards who drowned trying to rescue people they had never met, about human soldiers who threw themselves on explosives to protect their comrades, about humans who gave their own organs to save the lives of others. There were records of human ships diverting to help vessels in distress, even when it cost them dearly. Records of humans risking their lives for people they did not know. For species they had barely met, the database called it irrational altruism. It listed it as a potential weakness. In the human psychological profile, Velmora stared at the data and wondered if the database was wrong, if perhaps this weakness was something else entirely. "Captain," Thess called out. "We're receiving a transmission from the human ship. They're sending us their approach plan." Velmora pulled up the data. The human ship was coming fast, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. They had calculated a route that would minimize their time in the radiation zone, but there was no way to avoid it completely. Their shields would be battered. Their hull would be damaged. "They're going to hurt their ship to save us," Thess said quietly. "Why?" Before Velmora could answer, another transmission came through. This time it was a video feed. A human face appeared on the screen, female with dark skin and kind eyes. "Captain Velmora, I'm Captain Maria Santos of the Defiant. We've reviewed your situation. We'll reach you with approximately 12 hours to spare on your life support. My crew is preparing for rescue operations now." "Captain Santos," Velmora said carefully, "your database files should tell you that the radiation will damage your vessel. Your shields will fail just as ours did. Why are you risking your ship and crew for us?" The human looked confused by the question. "Because you need help," she said simply. "What other reason would we need?" But the logical calculation, "Captain Velmora, with respect, we don't abandon people because it's inconvenient. That's not who we are. We received your distress signal. We're the closest ship, so we're coming." Santos smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "No one dies alone in the dark if we can help it. That's not logical, maybe, but it's human. Hold tight, Captain. We'll get you home." The transmission ended. Velmora stood in silence, trying to process what they had just heard. Around them, the Kalathi crew was equally quiet. "They're coming," Thess whispered. "They're really coming." "Yes," Velmora said. "They are." The young navigator's crystalline form flickered, but this time not with fear. "Captain, I accessed the human information database. I wanted to understand them. There's a phrase they use. We don't leave people behind. It's like a rule for them, but not a law. Something deeper." "What do you mean?" "They choose it," Thess said, wonder in their voice. "Every time they choose it. Even when it costs them. Even when it hurts. They choose to help." Velmora looked at the scanner, at the small dot of the human ship racing toward them through the dark. Behind that dot were 45 human lives, all of them now in danger because they had chosen to answer a distress call. Chosen, not calculated. Not evaluated for profit and loss, simply chosen. "Perhaps," Velmora said softly, "we have misunderstood what it means to be civilized." The hours continued to pass. The radiation continued to rise. The cracks in the Kalathi crystalline bodies grew deeper. But now they had hope. Strange, illogical human hope. Someone was coming. Someone had heard them scream into the void and had decided that was enough. The Defiant raced through space, and aboard the dying Calathi ship, 12 scientists held on and waited for the humans to arrive. Captain Maria Santos stood in the center of the Defiant's bridge and looked at her crew. 45 humans from a dozen different countries back on Earth, all of them now staring at her with serious faces. "You all know the situation," Maria said. "The Calathi ship is dying. We can save them, but it's going to cost us. The radiation will damage our shields. We might lose some systems. There's risk involved." She paused, looking each of them in the eye. "I need to know if anyone wants to object. If anyone thinks this is too dangerous. This is voluntary. No one will blame you if you want to turn back." Silence filled the bridge. Then her first officer, a tall man from Norway named Eric Larson, snorted. "Captain, with respect, that's a stupid question. When did we ever turn away from a distress call?" Around the bridge, heads nodded. A few people smiled. "Besides," said the engineer, a woman from Brazil named Patricia Ruiz, "I've already started rigging the extra shielding. Took cargo containers from Bay 3 and welded them to the forward hull. It's ugly as hell, but it'll give us more protection. I've recalibrated the deflectors," added the young pilot from Japan, Kenji Yamamoto. "We can angle them to take most of the radiation on the reinforced sections." Maria felt her chest tighten with pride. This was her crew. This was humanity. "All right then," she said. "Let's go save some people." The Defiant pushed forward, engines burning hot, racing toward the dying star. On the Serenity's Echo, Navigator Thess watched the human ship approach on the scanners. "They're coming so fast, Captain. Faster than is safe. They're in a hurry," Vilmora said. They had been studying humans for hours now, trying to understand them. "They know we are dying. They do not want to be late, but they're pushing their engines past safety limits. They could damage their ship before they even reach us." "I think," Vilmora said slowly, "that humans do not think the same way we do about safety. They do not calculate acceptable losses. They simply act." The hours crawled past. The Defiant drew closer, and then finally the human ship entered the radiation zone around the dying star. Vilmora watched the sensors. Their shields are being hit. Energy levels are dropping on their vessel. "They're still coming," Thess said. "Yes, they are still coming." The Defiant pulled alongside the Serenity's Echo, matching velocity despite the radiation pouring over both ships. Maria Santos appeared on the screen again, now wearing a protective suit. "Serenity's Echo, we're beginning rescue operations. My engineers are bringing over emergency power cells and portable shield generators. We'll get your engines running and get you out of here." "Captain Santos," Vilmora said, "your shields are failing. We can see it on our sensors. You should leave before—" "Not without you," Maria interrupted. "My crew is already suiting up. We've done this kind of thing before, Captain. Trust us." Vilmora wanted to argue, but then they saw the airlock indicators light up. The humans were already crossing over. The first human through the airlock was a big man with dark skin and a bright smile. "Engineer First Class Marcus Chen," he said, extending a hand in the human greeting. "Don't worry, we'll have you fixed up in no time." Behind him came 3 more humans, all carrying heavy equipment. They moved with purpose and confidence, spreading out through the ship like they had done this 100 times before. "Your engine coupling is fried," Marcus said, already pulling panels off the walls to access the systems. "But we can bypass it with one of our power cells. It'll get you moving, at least." "The radiation," Vilmora said. "It will damage you. Your suits cannot protect you completely." Marcus looked up from his work and grinned. "Yeah, well, we'll deal with that later. Right now you need engines." More humans came across. A medical officer named Dr. Sarah Okafor, who immediately began checking the Calathi for radiation damage. A technician who started reinforcing the shield generators. A pilot who worked with Thess to prepare the navigation systems. Navigator Thess watched the humans work with something like amazement. "They're so efficient," Thess said to Dr. Okafor. "Like they've practiced this." "We have," Sarah said, carefully scanning Thess's crystalline structure. "Humans help each other all the time. It's what we do. On Earth, we have entire organizations dedicated to rescuing people. Firefighters, Coast Guards, search and rescue teams. When someone is in trouble, we go get them. But we are not human. We are strangers." Sarah looked up, her brown eyes warm. "That doesn't matter. You needed help. That's enough." Thess felt something crack inside their crystalline chest, but this time it was not from radiation. I do not understand your species, Thess said quietly. We called for help. All the great civilizations of the galaxy heard us. The traders, the warriors, the diplomats. All of them had reasons not to come. Good reasons. Logical reasons. And yet here we are, Sarah said. Why? Thess asked. Why do you do this? Sarah was quiet for a moment, thinking. There's an old human saying. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We help because we hope someone would help us. But more than that, we help because it's right. Because when someone is dying and you can save them, you don't calculate whether it's worth it. You just do it. On the bridge of the Defiant, alarms were blaring. Captain, shields down to 30%, Eric reported. Hull temperature rising. We're taking more radiation than projected. How long until the Calathi engines are operational? Maria asked. Marcus says 20 more minutes. Then we stay for 20 more minutes. Captain, if we stay much longer, we might not be able to leave. The radiation is affecting our engine coolant systems. Maria looked at the image of the Calathi ship on the screen, thought about the 12 crystalline beings inside, who had been left to die by everyone else. We don't leave until they can leave, she said firmly. That's final. Inside the Serenity's Echo, Marcus Chen was working fast. His radiation counter was beeping steadily, warning him that he was being exposed. He ignored it. The engine coupling was almost done. Marcus, one of the other engineers called out. Your suit is reading red. You need to get back to the Defiant. 5 more minutes, Marcus said, his hands steady as he connected the power cell to the Calathi engines. Just 5 more minutes. Suddenly the ship shook. Another solar flare, smaller than the first but still dangerous, washed over both vessels. Marcus, it was Captain Santos on the radio. All personnel return to the Defiant immediately. Engines almost done, Captain. Just need to. A piece of debris blown loose by the flare smashed through a weakened section of hull. It tumbled through the air, heading straight for Thess, who was frozen in panic. Marcus moved without thinking. He shoved the young Calathi navigator out of the way, taking the debris impact himself. His suit tore. Alarms shrieked. Marcus! Thess screamed. The big engineer stumbled but kept working even as his suit began to fail. Just need to finish. 2 other humans grabbed him, dragging him back even as he fought to complete the connection. It's done. One of them shouted. Marcus, it's done. The engines are online. They pulled him toward the airlock as the Calathi engines rumbled to life. On the Defiant's bridge, Maria Santos saw the Calathi ship's engines activate. Eric, get us out of here. Both ships, maximum speed now. The 2 vessels accelerated away from the dying star, shields flickering, hulls scarred, but both of them moving. They were going to make it. In the Defiant's medical bay, Dr. Okafor worked desperately on Marcus Chen. The radiation exposure was severe. The suit breach had been catastrophic. Velmora stood in the doorway watching. Will he survive? Sarah didn't look up from her work. I don't know. He took a lot of radiation, more than any human should. He saved Navigator Thess, pushed them out of the way. That's Marcus, Sarah said, and her voice broke. That's what humans do. Velmora watched the medical team fight to save the human engineer and finally understood. This was not calculation. This was not logic. This was something deeper, something that ran in human blood like a song. This was the thing that made humans run into burning buildings, the thing that made them dive into dark water, the thing that made them answer distress calls when no one else would. Humans didn't help because it made sense. They helped because they couldn't do anything else. And Velmora realized, standing there in the human medical bay, that perhaps this was what true civilization looked like. Both ships limped through space, moving away from the dying star as fast as their damaged engines could carry them, but they were not safe yet. Captain Maria Santos studied the readouts on her screen with growing concern. The Defiant's shields were gone. The hull was breached in 3 places. The engine coolant was leaking, and behind them the unstable star was building toward another eruption. Eric, she said quietly to her first officer, give me the bad news. Eric Larson pulled up the sensor data. The star is going into a full collapse sequence. Bigger than anything we predicted. If it blows while we're still this close, he didn't need to finish. They both knew what would happen. How long do we have? Maybe an hour. Maybe less. And how long before we're at safe distance? 2 hours. Maybe more. With our damaged engines. Maria closed her eyes for just a moment. They had come so far. Done so much. And now the universe was going to take it all away. "Captain," the communications officer called out. "The Kalathi ship is hailing us." Velmora's crystalline face appeared on the screen. "Captain Santos, our sensors show the star is destabilizing. You need to increase speed." "We're going as fast as we can," Maria said. "No," Velmora said urgently. "You need to go faster. You need to leave us behind." The bridge went silent. "What?" Maria said. "Your ship is damaged because of us. Your crew is injured because of us. One of your people is dying because of us." Velmora's voice was firm. "You have done enough." "More than enough. Our engines are working now. We can escape on our own. You need to save your crew." "Velmora, or Captain Santos, this is not a debate. This is mathematics. If you stay with us matching our slower speed, both ships will be destroyed. If you leave now at maximum speed, your ship and crew will survive." "We don't leave people behind," Maria said. "You already saved us. Now save yourselves." On the Serenity's Echo, Navigator Thess grabbed Velmora's arm. "Captain, tell them to go. Please, we cannot be responsible for their deaths." Velmora nodded. "Captain Santos, I'm ordering you to leave. As the ranking council member in this situation, I am giving you a direct command. Abandon us and save your crew." Maria looked around her bridge at her crew. They all stared back at her. No one spoke, but she could see it in their eyes. The answer was the same as it always was. "Request denied," Maria said. "We're staying. You're being irrational." Velmora shouted, their crystalline form flickering with distress. "Yeah," Maria said with a slight smile. "We're human. It's kind of our thing." She switched off the communication and turned to her crew. "All right, people. We need to get both ships moving faster. Ideas?" Patricia Ruiz, the engineer, spoke up immediately. "Captain, if we transfer some of our emergency power to the Kalathi ship, boost their engines, they could move faster. We'd be slower, but together we'd cover more distance." "Do it, Captain," Eric said carefully. "If we give them our emergency power, we won't have any reserves." "If something goes wrong, then something goes wrong," Maria said. "But we all get out together or not at all." The crew moved into action. Lines were extended between the two ships. Power cells were transferred. Engineers worked frantically on both vessels to squeeze every bit of speed from the damaged engines. Behind them, the star groaned. Sensors showed it building toward a catastrophic eruption. In the Defiance medical bay, Marcus Chen lay on the bed, barely conscious. Dr. Sarah Okafor had done everything she could, but the radiation damage was too severe. He was dying. Thess sat beside him, the young Kalathi navigator, refusing to leave. "I am sorry," Thess whispered. "This is my fault." "You saved me." Marcus's eyes opened slightly. "Not your fault," he said, his voice weak. "Just what we do. Why?" Thess asked, tears forming in their crystalline eyes. "Why do humans do this? Why do you sacrifice yourselves for strangers?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, gathering strength. "My grandmother used to tell me a story about a man on a beach, covered with starfish, thousands of them dying in the sun, and the man is picking them up one by one, throwing them back into the water." He coughed, and Sarah quickly adjusted his medication. Someone asks him, "Why bother?" "There are too many. You can't make a difference." And the man picks up another starfish, throws it into the water, and says, "Made a difference to that one." Marcus looked at Thess with fading eyes. "You needed help. Maybe we couldn't save everyone in the galaxy, but we could save you. And that made it worth it." "Please don't die," Thess begged. "Tell your people," Marcus whispered. "Tell them that humans, we don't calculate worth, we just help. That's what makes us human." His eyes closed. "Marcus," Thess cried out. Sarah worked desperately, but the monitors were clear. Marcus Chen's heart had stopped. On the bridge, alarms began screaming. "Captain!" Kenji shouted from the pilot station. "The star is erupting. Major flare, biggest one yet. How long?" 3 minutes until it hits us." Maria looked at the distance readout. They were still too close. They weren't going to make it. "All power to engines," she ordered. "Everything we have. Life support, artificial gravity, everything. Just give me speed." "Captain, if we shut down life support, we don't need life support if we're dead. Do it." The Defiant shuddered as every system was diverted to the engines. The ship surged forward. Beside them, the Serenity's echo matched their speed. 2 minutes, Kenji said, his voice tight. Maria opened a channel to the entire ship. "All hands brace for impact. Get to emergency shelters. This is going to be rough. On the Serenity's echo, Velmora made the same announcement. Then they turned to their crew. If we do not survive this, I want you all to know. We were saved by people who barely knew us, by a species that chose compassion over calculation. Whatever happens, the humans showed us what it truly means to be civilized. 1 minute, Kenji counted down. The two ships raced through space. Engines screaming, hulls shaking. 30 seconds, Maria gripped her chair. Come on, she whispered. Come on. 10 seconds. The star erupted behind them, a wall of energy and radiation expanding outward like the hand of an angry god. Brace, Maria shouted. The wave hit. The Defiant's hull screamed in protest. Systems exploded. Bulkheads buckled. The ship tumbled through space like a toy. Beside them, the Serenity's echo was thrown forward, spinning wildly, but they were moving. Both ships, battered and broken, were being pushed ahead of the wave by the very force that was trying to destroy them. When the shaking finally stopped, Maria pulled herself up from where she had been thrown against the wall. Status report. Shields gone, Eric said, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. Hull breached on decks 3 and 5. Engines at 15%. But we're clear of the radiation zone. The Kalathi ship, still with us. Damaged but intact. Maria let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. Get me a channel to the Serenity's echo. Velmora appeared on screen, their crystalline body showing new cracks but their eyes bright with life. Captain Santos, we survived. Yeah, Maria said, and she was smiling even though she wanted to cry. We survived. Your ship is badly damaged. Your engineer is... Velmora couldn't finish. Marcus is gone, Maria said quietly. He died saving your navigator. I know, Velmora said. Tess told me. Captain Santos, I do not have words for what your crew has done. You came when no one else would. You risked everything. You lost one of your own. And for what? For strangers? For people you had never met? Maria looked around her damaged bridge at her injured crew and thought about Marcus Chen lying dead in the medical bay. You were in trouble, she said simply. That's all the reason we needed. Velmora stared at her for a long moment. Humans are either the wisest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. I am no longer certain which. Maybe, Maria said. We're a little bit of both. As the two ships limped toward the nearest station, navigation systems barely functioning, hulls scarred and smoking, they left behind the dying star and carried with them something new. A lesson about what it meant to answer a call for help, about what it cost to be the one who comes when everyone else turns away, and about a human engineer named Marcus Chen, who had understood something that the rest of the galaxy was just beginning to learn. That sometimes the most logical thing to do is to ignore logic entirely and just help. 3 weeks had passed since the rescue. The Serenity's Echo and the damaged Defiant finally arrived at Harmony Point, the nearest Galactic Council station. As they docked, they were met by repair crews, medical teams, and a crowd of onlookers who had heard about what happened. Captain Velmora stood in the council chambers, their crystalline body still showing cracks from the radiation but alive, whole, and very angry. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. The Zinthari, the Morvex, the Pelthians, the Quarren, and many others, all the civilized species of the galaxy, gathered to hear Velmora's report. I submitted my formal report 3 days ago, Velmora said, their voice echoing in the vast chamber, but I think it is important that I speak these words aloud so that everyone here understands what happened. The chamber was silent. My crew sent a distress signal. We were dying 3 days from death and we called for help. We called on the frequencies that are supposed to be sacred, the emergency channels that all council members promised to monitor and respond to. Velmora pulled up a display showing the map of ships that had received the distress call. 47 vessels received our signal. 47 chances for rescue. And of those 47, do you know how many came to help us? The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. 1, Velmora said. 1 single ship. And it was not Zinthari. They looked at the insectoid trader delegation. It was not Morvex. They looked at the reptilian warriors. It was not any of the ancient, wise, civilized species that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Velmora's voice grew harder. It was humans. A species that has been in space for barely 200 years. A species that most of you consider young, impulsive, and irrational. Captain Velmora, the Zinthari representative, spoke up, clicking their mandibles nervously. We filed the appropriate reports. We notified the rescue services. We followed protocol. You followed protocol, Velmora interrupted. Yes, you all did. You logged our distress. You checked the boxes. You did your duty as defined by regulations and rules. Their crystalline body flashed with light, and then you continued on your way and left us to die. We had valuable cargo, the Zinthari started. Cargo? Yes, cargo. That is what our lives were worth to you. Less than cargo, the Morvex commander stood. Captain, we had no strategic reason to risk a military vessel for a civilian science ship. Our duty is to protect the Dominion. And our duty, said the Pelthian ambassador smoothly, was to deliver important diplomats. The needs of the many outweigh— Stop, Velmora said quietly. Just stop. I have heard all your reasons. I have read all your reports. And every single one of you had a good reason. A logical reason. A reason that made sense. They paused, letting the silence grow. And then there were the humans. They had no good reason. They were 3 days away in the danger zone. Coming to help us would damage their ship. They had no profit to gain, no strategic advantage, no diplomatic benefit. Every logical calculation said they should not come. Velmora looked around the chamber at all the assembled species. And yet they came anyway. They came because we needed help, and that was reason enough. They damaged their ship. They risked their lives. And one of them, Engineer Marcus Chen, died saving my navigator. The chamber was completely silent now. I have been alive for 300 years. Velmora continued. I have studied galactic civilization, believed in the council, trusted in the idea that we are all better together. But now I understand something I should have known long ago. They pulled up the transmission logs, the official responses from all the ships that had received the distress call. We talk about being civilized. We have rules and protocols and procedures. We have trade agreements and military alliances and diplomatic treaties. We have built a galaxy that runs on logic and calculation and mutual benefit. Velmora's crystalline eyes swept across the chamber. But the humans showed us that we have forgotten something essential. Being civilized is not about following rules. It is not about calculating profit and loss. It is about answering when someone calls for help. It is about running toward danger instead of away from it. It is about saving lives even when it costs you. The Kalathi captain's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but in the silent chamber, everyone heard it clearly. You all let us die because it was logical. The humans saved us because it was right. And I think that says everything about what true civilization really means. Velmora sat down. The chamber erupted. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The recording of Velmora's speech was shared on every network, every news feed, every public forum. The title spread with it, Only Humans Came. In the markets of Zinthar Prime, the insectoid traders found their customers turning away. Why should we trust you with our lives, one merchant was asked, when you would not even risk profit to save lives? On Morvex ships, soldiers began questioning their orders. Are we warriors? They asked their commanders, or just calculators of strategic value? Across the galaxy, species that had prided themselves on logic and wisdom found themselves confronted with an uncomfortable truth. The humans, the young, impulsive, irrational humans, had done what all the ancient civilizations had not. The human embassy on Harmony Point was flooded with requests. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, scientific exchanges, cultural programs. Everyone wanted to be friends with the humans now. The Terran ambassador, a calm woman named Jennifer Park, read through the requests with a tired expression. Captain Maria Santos sat across from her, still recovering from the radiation exposure. They all want to be our friends now, Jennifer said, because we saved one ship. We didn't do it for this, Maria said, I know. That's what makes it powerful. Jennifer looked at the list. The Kalathi have offered us unrestricted access to their research. The Pelthians want to establish an embassy on Earth. Even the Morvex have suggested military cooperation. What are you going to tell them? Jennifer smiled. The truth. That we'll be happy to work with anyone who shares our values, that we believe in helping those in need, standing by our friends and answering distress calls. She paused. That we judge species not by their words but by their actions. On Earth, in a small town in California, a memorial was being built. It was simple, just a stone with a name carved into it. Marcus Chen. Below the name was a single line. He ran toward the fire. Captain Santos stood at the memorial site with Marcus's family. His mother, a small woman with sad eyes, held Maria's hand. "Thank you for bringing him home," she said quietly. "He saved 12 lives," Maria said. "He's a hero." "He was always like that," Marcus's mother said, smiling through tears. "Even as a boy, he could never ignore someone in trouble. He had to help. Had to try." She looked up at Maria. "Was it quick? Did he suffer?" Maria thought about Marcus in the medical bay, his suit torn, radiation poisoning killing him slowly. She thought about his last words, about the starfish story, about the smile on his face when he talked about making a difference. "He knew he helped," Maria said. "He knew the Kalathi survived because of him. He was at peace." On the Kalathi homeworld, Navigator Thess stood before the Crystal Council, the ruling body of their people. Thess had been given a great honor, to speak to the council about their experience. "I was prepared to die," Thess said. "We all were. We had accepted it. And then the humans came. Their crystalline form flickered with emotion. They came when no one else would. They risked everything, and Marcus Chen gave his life to save mine." The eldest crystal on the council, a being that had lived for over 1,000 years, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "You have been changed by this experience, young one. We can see it in the resonance of your form." "Yes, Elder," Thess said. "I have learned something that I think we all need to learn. We Kalathi pride ourselves on logic, on careful calculation, on wisdom born from long life. But the humans taught me that some things cannot be calculated. Some things must simply be done. What will you do with this knowledge?" "I want to establish an exchange program," Thess said. "Kalathi scientists working with human emergency responders. I want us to learn from them. Not their technology, not their ships, but their spirit. The thing that makes them run toward danger. The thing that makes them answer distress calls." The elder was quiet for a long moment. "And what would you call this program?" Thess thought about Marcus Chen, about his last words, about the story of the starfish on the beach. "I would call it the Chen Initiative, after the human who taught me that making a difference to just one life is enough." Back on Harmony Point, Captain Santos prepared the Defiant for the journey home to Earth. The ship had been repaired, though it still bore scars from the radiation. The crew was whole again, except for the one empty bunk in the engineer's quarters. Velamora came to see them off. The Kalathi captain brought with them something precious, a piece of their own crystalline structure, carefully carved into a small sculpture. It showed 2 ships side by side racing away from a dying star. "This is for your ship," Velamora said, "so you will always remember." "We won't forget," Maria said. "No," Velamora agreed. "None of us will." They paused. "Captain Santos, I must ask you something. When you received our distress signal, did you ever consider not coming? Did you ever calculate whether we were worth